Now we get to possibly my all-time favourite track in an F1 game, Silverstone. Now I may be slightly biased that this is my home Grand Prix and I've been lucky enough to visit, but Silverstone is both one of the most exciting tracks to watch a Formula 1 race and actually race in F1 23. The combination of fast corners, slower corners, and that sequence from Maggots through to Chapel really make this track stand out. There are plenty of overtaking spots, and as long as you don't have a car setup with too much downforce, you can really have a strong race in F1 23. Now I've opted for an aero setup of 26 at the front and 22 at the rear. This ensures your car remains responsive, which is crucial through those sweeping S's. This setup is a little on the lower side compared to some time trial setups. However, during a race, you'll need a lower downforce approach than you do during a time trial session, as this will allow you to defend and overtake easier. The transmission setup is not a surprise if you've seen any of our other F1 23 car setups. Go with 55% on throttle and 50% off throttle diff. This really is the best approach with almost every F1 23 car setup. Now for the suspension geometry, things are a little different to most F1 23 setups. I've gone with a front camber of -2.5, pretty normal, but a rear camber of -1.5. Then I've lowered the toe right down to 0 at the front and 0.12 at the rear. This is designed to optimise the car for the straight parts of the track to minimise drag, as well as really factoring in tyre wear. I've kept the front suspension relatively stiff to ensure we've got good responsiveness, while I've lowered the rear. Go with 28 at the front and 8 at the rear for the suspension. Then go with anti-roll bars of 8 and 1 and a ride height of 33 and 35, which is actually really low for an F1 23 car setup. But Silverstone is incredibly flat and smooth without many really high curbs, so a low ride height is optimal. The brake setup itself is pretty standard at 100% brake pressure and 56% brake bias, but you can lower the brake bias for some corners, maybe such as the approach to the final chicane if you notice any front wheel locking. Finally, the tyre pressures are also on the low side to help preserve tyre wear. But overall, tyre wear is quite balanced with this car setup, with the fronts and rears both going off at the same time. Go with 23 psi on both front tyres and 20.5 psi on both rear tyres. And that will complete our Silverstone F1 23 car setup. This is another setup similar to our Jeddah one, where it produces an extremely fast car. With our Jeddah car setup, I was completely dominant over the AI and had to increase the AI difficulty, and the same is true with this car setup. Let me know in the comments below if you find this setup just as dominant, and also consider subscribing if you're enjoying our F1 23 videos so far. But for now guys, enjoy this setup and I will see you on track.